as the sun set against the horizon on the 23rd of May 2008, the lights lit up at the new Bangalore International Airport. In less than 3 hours, the first international airline would land, heralding the beginning of a new era in the annals of the city of Bangalore. Bangalore, a city in the south of India, known as a pensioner's paradise, the Garden City, underwent a sudden transformation as the Silicon Valley of India in the mid-90s. In less than 5 years, the sleepy city saw an unprecedented growth in terms of influx of people from across the world. Vehicular movement on the roads and the global brands that made Bangalore its hub. All this meant a bigger flow of people from and to Bangalore. In spite of all this, Bangalore did not even have its own airport. The only airport that existed in Bangalore belonged to the defense and was set up during the Second World War. With the capacity to handle 3.5 million passengers per year, the airport was bursting in its seams, with passenger movement touching 5 million. With passenger traffic expected to touch 7.5 million in the next few years, it became imperative to build a new airport, and the dice was set rolling in 1998. The next few years would see the dream of a new international class airport in Bangalore take shape. Sometime in 1998, the government selected Devanahalli, a place 36 kilometers to the north of Bangalore, to be the site of the new airport. It was here, on 4,000 acres of land, that India's first greenfield airport would be built. It would also be India's biggest public-private participation. It took 3 years before things were finalized and the first official groundbreaking ceremony was performed by the then Prime Minister of India, Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Bangalore would have its airport by the year 2004. But due to complex legal framework, things were put on hold, and it would be another 2 years before the actual construction would commence.
On the legal framework, and we thought we were almost done on the legal framework. To our surprise and to the surprise of everyone, we discovered that there was a need to amend the Airports Authority of India Act itself, because the Act did not permit the existence of private airports at that point of time. So we discovered that we had to go back and do the amendment, and ultimately that itself took away almost about an year.
It was in the year 2004 when the concession agreement was signed between the Government of India and the Bangalore International Airport Limited, a consortium of Siemens Project Ventures, Unique, Zurich Airport, Larsen & Toubro, the Airport Authority of India and the Karnataka State Industrial Investment and Development Corporation Limited. With the then Chief Minister, Mr. S.M. Krishna, doing the honours of groundbreaking again, the airport was ready to be constructed. The construction began on the 2nd of July 2005. The day of the launch was set. It was to be the 2nd of April 2008. It was 33 months to deadline. The challenge was on. The cost would be over $350 million.
We want to become an aviation platform for the southern part of India. That means we want to become a hub from where you can take off international direct flights to the US. We want to compete with the hubs in Europe, and we can do that. If we are able to reach this goal, then we will create thousands of jobs, and we will boost the economy of the city and of the state. And I'm absolutely sure we will put Bangalore's name on the international map.
The airport was visualized as a modern, passenger-friendly gateway to Bangalore. Designed by Hoffmann Vandermeer Planner AG, a Switzerland-based company. The airport would have the ability to expand based on passenger traffic. Phase 1 would have one terminal building and one runway. The second phase would have a second runway and a second terminal building. The 65-meter-tall ATC tower would be built in between the two runways. In Phase 1, the car park would be in front of the terminal building, which could park 2,000 cars at any given time. Along the secondary access road, there would be concessionaire facilities and other administration blocks. A full-fledged airport city was envisioned.
If you look back at the last 50 years, nothing was invested in good airports. Although there is an immense potential in India, it's one of the biggest potentials in the world, and nothing was done there. And thanks to the new government and the very proactive Minister of Civil Aviation, we have suddenly changed the landscape. And we will be the example for other airports to follow.
Every aspect of the airport was taken care of. BIAL had made substantial efforts in making sure that the professional concessionaires for the various services come on board. The following partners had been selected after an extensive technical and financial evaluation. A consortium consisting of Sky Tanking and Indian Oil would build and operate the fuel farm and hydrant system of the airport on a truly open access basis. This implies that any qualified supplier of aviation turbine fuel can supply airlines with and process its fuel through the common facility against a non-discriminatory and competitive charge. The consortia of Globe Ground India, Air India and Singapore Air Terminal Services were responsible for providing ground handling services and for procuring the ground handling equipment required for operations. Two consortia consisting of SATS, Air India and Boba Group, Menzies Aviation, would build and operate a state-of-the-art general cargo warehouse for both domestic as well as international cargo. The combined area for both warehouses was approximately 15 acres, with an initial capacity to handle approximately 300,000 tons of cargo. LSG Skychefs and Taj Sats have been selected as the flight caterers of the airport. HMS Host Corporation, part of the Autogrill Group, a world leader in airport dining and shopping innovations, were awarded the contract to operate the food and beverage concessions program at the domestic and international departures. Based on the defined evaluation criteria, a consortium of Nuance and Shoppers Stop for the retail and duty-free in the international departure and Shoppers Stop for the retail package in the domestic departure were selected. The Oberoi Group would operate a first-class international hotel of competitive scale and standard under the Trident Hilton brand. This truly would be the first airport hotel in India within walking distance from the terminal building. And the Into plane fueling service at the new international airport was handed over to two consortia consisting of Bharat Petroleum Corporation Limited, BPCL, SD Airport Services Private Limited, STARS, and Indian Oil, Sky Tanking. Each one had a specific job to do and at the same time work in tandem to complete the project within the time frame and, more importantly, within the budget.
It was the first time we could bring in professionals in the Indian aviation market. First time we could introduce an open access model in fuel. First time we could bring in professionals in cargo, in ground handling, in retail, in food and beverage. Combining domestic skills and international skills, which is due to the liberalization of Indian airports, was only possible, and BL was always the first one to ever choose such a partner in that field.
Every section of the airport was to be built almost simultaneously. The airside, the terminal building, the cargo sections, the ATC, the roads, the connectivity to the city, the fuel tanks. The deadline of the completion of the infrastructure was December 2007. And it would need the next 3 months to work on the trials. The airside and the terminal building were the first to begin. The airside included the runway, which was 4,000 meters long, the taxiways and the apron. The length of the runway would enable the landing of large-bodied aircraft like the Airbus A380. The apron was large enough to park 42 aircraft at any given time. Fortunately, the land itself would provide the raw materials needed to pave the runway. The runway along with the apron was scheduled to finish in 24 months. Over 168 earth movers, 107,260 man days and 200,000 metric tons of asphalt would go on to make this happen. Across the runway was the terminal building with its 8 aero bridges. It was to house 53 check-in counters and 71,000 square meters of terminal space, and designed to take in the load of both the domestic and the international passengers. The design was such that both the international passengers and the domestic passengers checked in at the same terminal, and once they reached the first level, the domestic passengers would go left and the international passengers would go right towards immigration. Glass corridors would help direct disembarking passengers towards the baggage section and then towards the exit. Unlike existing airports in India, this airport would be the first where there would be no need for scanning of check-in baggage. A state-of-the-art baggage conveyor belt would not only direct the baggage to the right flight terminal, but also scan it for any explosives.
We are one of the first airports now that does the so-called inline security screening. We have a 5-level screening of the checked baggage, of baggage that you checked in. You know, so far it was that this baggage is screened before you check in. We will do a fully automated process, or a almost fully automated process after check-in, where we have a 5-level systems. The most sophisticated screening machines. Then we would have level 2, an operator who does an image identification. We have then level 3, once more, a screening machine where you can turn around the baggage with a high resolution and bomb explosive detectors. So this is really the highest level of equipment.
Once the work got started, it was activity at full throttle. Every day, almost 5 meters of runway was being completed. Hundreds of trucks would transport the required material from the concrete mixers to the runway. At the terminal building, the foundation was being laid. The total load on these, once the whole building was complete, would be staggering. As the days went by, most of the project was on schedule, but one issue was bothering the citizens of Bangalore. People in Bangalore were not used to distances. The city had grown around the present airport. In spite of the fact the airport was a good 10 kilometers from the center of the city, most of modern Bangalore was near to it and people had gotten accustomed to it. The new airport would be a good 36 kilometers from the center, and the connectivity sure was an issue. The changing of the governments one after the other was not making the situation any better, as no one was willing to take on the responsibility. But then there were some in the bureaucracy who believed in the importance of the project and were willing to support it all the way.
Main thing was road connectivity. This airport did not have proper road connectivity, especially the issue was caught in litigation. So we had to fight legal battle. We are still fighting. The issue is still in the Supreme Court. So that was the biggest challenge because that was the main entry to the international airport. The trumpet interchange, which involves 3 ROBs, road over bridges, and about 4 kilometers of road, could not be taken up because of legal hurdles. So we had to sort out the issue. I was personally present in the Supreme Court when this case was going on in the Supreme Court, when the leading legal luminaries of India were arguing for the private party which was trying to get a stay order. And stay order was not granted. I was so happy there. I was scared if the stay order is issued, then our airport connectivity would have been grounded, would not have been able to enter the airport. But we have faith in judiciary. Judiciary did not give stay order, and the Supreme Court did not give, and that was a moment of really happiness, great happiness to me.
When the project was designed initially, BIAL had anticipated a traffic volume of approximately 5 million passengers in the first year of the operation. However, this figure was already reached by the time the construction began. The big challenge was to significantly increase the project, which was already under construction, without jeopardizing the initial airport opening date. The redesign process, along with the formal approval, took more than 9 months, and by the time the increased project was approved, half of the construction was complete.
There seems to be some respite and hope for the Bangalore International Airport project. The authorities say that the redesign has been accepted and it will now be completed by April 2008.
Today, the Union Cabinet has cleared the approval for the overhauling of the Bangalore airport. The Cabinet had not earlier cleared the issue.
The plan for the airport has been redesigned to handle over 11.5 million passengers in April of 2008. That's when the airport becomes operational with a capacity to handle arrival and departure of 27 aircraft every hour.
The proposed length of the terminal was to be increased from 168 meters to 216 meters, which meant extra foundation, extra pillars, extra interior planning, and so many other complications. But the deadline for the launch was to remain the same.
During construction in the last 2.5 years, we have increased the scope for the contractors by 70%, increased by 70% without postponing airport opening date. So it's a real challenge to physically complete the airport.
The last layer on the runway was being laid. What once looked like a desert patch now had asphalt on it. The taxiway was being readied. The apron still had some way to go. The height of the ATC tower was rising day by day. At the other end, work had just started on the cargo blocks. But the excitement lay at the terminal building. The roof of the terminal building was to be made up of prefabricated structures. Each structure was 6 meters in length and 24 meters wide. In all, the structure weighed over 120 tons. A special railroad was built to transport the completed structures to the terminal building, from where the cranes would lift it before it was put in place. The railroad was given a nickname, Devnali Express, after the name of the area where the airport was coming up. All in all, 236 prefabricated roofs would be required to be put into place.
The roof is a combination of a shell, a folded plate and north light glazing structure. As you see, the building doesn't need illumination, artificial illumination, till about 5:30 in the evening. The north light glazing provides 80% of the illumination is taken in and 80% of the heat is retained outside because of the double glazing. So it's a kind of a green effort to curtail energy consumption for the purpose of lighting. Throughout the passenger movement area and the departure, right from the departure hall to the security check counters, to the check-in place, to the retail area, to the passenger hold area, throughout the day it will be naturally lit.
Over 5,000 people were getting the project to meet the deadline. The team at BIAL alone had grown from 6 initially to nearly 500.
It was difficult to find these people, and I'm very proud. I'm confident that we have found most of them. I'm absolutely convinced that we have found very good people, and I will do the best to keep them together and to build a strong team for the future as well. Those who have joined us now and perform well, they have a wonderful future, because we will be a good company, a shining company, and they will have good jobs there.
It was now over 2 years since the work on the ground had started. The road to the main exit was getting ready. The fuel tanks were almost complete. The 66 kVA power plant, which was to supply power to the airport, was being readied. The compound wall surrounding the airport was close to completion. All in all, the situation seemed to be in control. It was less than a year to the launch. The hot summers gave way to the rains, but work continued. The infrastructure was almost complete. At the terminal building, the roof was set and the rest was getting ready. It was during this time that news got out regarding the closure of the existing airport to make way to the new one. The media buzz in the market was about the distance and the inconvenience that the new airport would cause. At the same time, the political scenario in the state was turbulent, which meant that in spite of the government being a partner in the project, there was no one to defend it. Late 2007, one more issue cropped up.
नई इंटरनेशनल एयरपोर्ट की रफ्तार में एक नया रोड़ा आ खड़ा हुआ है। दरअसल एयरपोर्ट से बाहर जाने का रास्ता अभी तक तय नहीं हो सका है। एयरपोर्ट बना रही कंपनी बैंगलोर इंटरनेशनल एयरपोर्ट लिमिटेड इस मामले पर केंद्र और राज्य सरकार से बातचीत में लगी है।
The road connecting the city to the airport was in disarray, but more importantly, the flyover connecting the main national highway to the airport entrance had not even started. It was the Trumpet Flyover, named after its design, which looked like a trumpet. It was left to the BIAL management and Larsen & Toubro, the construction company, to take it upon themselves. The Trumpet Flyover was to connect both sides of the highway to the airport while having 2 exits from the airport. The total length of this 3-lane flyover was 1.5 kilometers, and there was just 6 months to complete it. The pressure was building up. By the end of 2007, the structures were complete. In a bid to impress upon the public, the BIAL started conducting tours for the public, which included trips for school children. Everyone who visited the place were impressed, but for those who had no clue, their future still held a nightmare. Back at the completed runway, the instrument landing systems were being fixed. Over 650 bulbs would light up the strip all the way to the apron. At the terminal building, the air conditioners were ready. So was the baggage belt. The check-in counters were in place. The lights were fixed. The escalators were ready to run. Just outside, the road to the exit and entry of the airport were ready. So were the car parks. The cargo bay was getting ready, and the ATC tower was towering over the blue sky. The 4 new state-of-the-art fire tenders were ready for any contingency. Things looked good.
Terminal is very, very practical for a passenger point of view, passenger friendliness. On the one side, it's very spacious. It has a lot of daylight, has a lot of windows, a lot of space. If you are in the departure hall, it's very big, it's very spacious, a lot of light, and yet there are relatively short ways for the passengers to walk. So between check-in and gate, or between arrival, immigration, baggage pickup, it's all very short ways to walk. And also, if you make a transfer, so a domestic passenger arriving, taking an international flight, it's very short distance, very simple process. You come out of, let's say, the domestic arrival, you just go back to the gate, very simple. And even international to international transfer, very simple. Before you come to immigration, you just turn around, you do a security call, and you are back in the passenger holding area of the international departure area.
It was now time to give BIAL a new look. The management of BIAL commissioned Ray and Keshavan, India's leading brand consultants, to design the new brand identity. Research indicated that the new airport had to be reflective of the city and all that it stands for. The new brand identity represented the flowers, lakes, gardens, and the pleasant climate of Bangalore. This in turn represented the values of simple, caring, engaging, efficient, and proactive attitude of the Bangaloreans. Even as the new logo was being unveiled, commissioning of most of the various systems at the airport was in progress. The 8 aero bridges were commissioned. So were the rest of the interiors of the terminal building. The escalators, the elevators, the baggage area. Even as the airside was being readied up, the migration of the airline's IT systems to the new airport were being carried on. The whole of the airport, every department was busy completing their respective trials. With the basic trials completed, it was time for the advanced trials. The airport readiness program consists of core and complementary processes that needed to be tested.
The plan is actually we get familiarized with the systems. We have all the people working, testing, allowing them to make mistakes, to find out where is the system not smooth running, what does it need that we have a safe operation, to train the people on the special equipments like a passenger boarding bridge or a maintenance of an escalator or the maintenance of a power station. All those detailed work that fits together in the end to a system, so-called airport, who in the end allows aircrafts to land here.
BIAL followed a guideline termed as FISH: Facilities, Information, Systems and Human Resources, to ensure that each of the processes were addressed and were ready. At the Airport Operation Control Center, the AOCC, the flight display system was simulated, the location management system was tested and the operation data validated. The concept of operational airport management as a concept was new to the Indian airports, and it was important that everyone was comfortable with its processes. It was time to see the results of the trials. On March 7, 2008, at 11 a.m., the first plane belonging to Kingfisher Airlines landed with its onboard guests and media personnel. It was a tense moment. The relief and joy among the people on the ground just explained the effort that had gone behind the making of the airport. The passengers disembarked and were led to the check-in lounge. Soon after, another aircraft landed. This time, it belonged to Air Deccan. The idea was to test the smooth functioning of the process. Close to 400 people participated in this historic public trial run. The facilities, procedures, systems and the staff were tested. The reactions said it all.
Rare opportunity one gets to land in a new greenfield airport, particularly in Bangalore, being my hometown as well. And I'm really happy and proud about it. It's a great airport with a great potential. I'm sure it will serve the interests of Bangalore.
It's fantastic. I haven't had this kind of an experience because we did some circuits over the airport, which is unusual, and kind of watching the runway from the sky and the new terminal from the sky was a fantastic experience.
The next couple of weeks saw night landing trials being carried out. All systems were go. Every part of the airport was receiving its final touches. The D-Day was getting close when a letter from the Director General of Civil Aviation brought in bad news that the launch had to be postponed. The training of personnel from ATC needed more time. The launch was now scheduled for the 11th of May. But this was not to dampen the spirits. The BIAL had kept its promise. The airport infrastructure was ready on schedule. It would not only connect Bangalore to the rest of the world, but would be a source of livelihood to thousands of people. 50% of those recruited were the localites, the Kannadigas. Care had been taken to provide jobs to most of those on whose land the airport was built. The earlier inauguration date had been fixed for the 28th of March. People from all over the world who were involved in the project had already booked their travel. They would arrive. And arrive they did, to a gala event. An event that showcased the airport and the terminal building in its entire splendor was ready. Even as the celebrations were on, the mood in the city of Bangalore was not encouraging. The rumors that it took over 3 hours to reach the airport had caught the people in a frenzy. Many organizations were trying to garner support to keep the old airport functioning. The matter reached the judiciary, and the closure of the old airport was decided upon. All flights would now take off from the new airport. Efforts were being made to make the drive to the airport a smooth one and one without signals. The City Transport Corporation had decided to ply special buses on a regular basis from the airport to different parts of Bangalore. Special taxi services were set up. Every effort was being made to make the passengers feel comfortable. The airport security was now under the hands of the Central Industrial Security Force. The trumpet flyover was ready. The grass had grown. But even the launch on May 11th was not to be. The state elections were on. It would be foolhardy to launch amidst chaos. The project was losing money with every day of delay. It was finally decided that the date would be moved to May 22nd. The first flight would land on the night of May 21st, and the first flight would take off at 02 minutes on May 22nd. The whole of May saw some of the top brass of the industry drop in to check out the facilities. Press conferences were held to announce the deadline. Bangalore was waiting. But then the team was in for one last hiccup. The evening of May 21st again saw a last-minute change. The launch was put off by 24 hours. The evening of May 23rd, all flights taking off after 0 hours on the 24th were to land here. The terminal building was buzzing with activity. The shops, the restaurants, the boutiques were all ready to welcome the guests. Outside, the passengers were driving in to catch the first flight that would take off. There was an air of expectation. Some passengers arrived as early as 5 hours before their takeoff.
Actually, I feel kind of embarrassed to be the first person here. I budgeted too much time to get here. Oh, the airport's great. It's awesome.
We used to hear there's a lot of problem, connectivity is not there and all, but we found that it is absolutely nice.
Air India flight IC609 from Mumbai was the first commercial flight to land at the new airport at 22 hours. As the flight touched down, everyone involved with the building of the new airport witnessed a special moment.
Welcome to Bangalore. Thank you very much.
Every passenger on this historic flight was felicitated. And all those who were waiting to board on flights leaving Bangalore also had a pleasant experience. The whole process till the boarding onto the aircraft worked just right. The captain and the crew of the first flight to take off were felicitated. .05 minutes. The first flight screamed across the runway before lifting off in starry skies. The destination, Singapore. The flight number, IC957. History was made. In less than 2 hours, the airport had witnessed its first landing and its first takeoff. And as the night gave rise to the dawn, the first of the domestic flights took to the skies and was soon followed by others. In just 24 hours, 341 aircraft had either landed or taken off from the airport. And over 30,000 passengers had passed through its terminal building. 33 months of effort had paid off. It would be the pride of Bangalore.
I'm really happy to be here actually.
It's fantastic.
State-of-the-art airport.
It's very, very beautiful.
It's a very, very excellent airport.
A nice standard. Easy getting here, easy check-in.
It's up to the international standards.
They've done a great job.
Comparatively very good.
It's world class, it's there, it's here for Bangalore.
A new era had begun.